Guys, welcome to a classic film review of Alfred Hitchcock's The Lady Vanishes from 1938, starring Margaret Lockwood and Michael Redgrave, amongst a host of other British acting talent. It's the mysterious tale of a young rich girl who's convinced that the lady she met on board a trans-European train has vanished. It's a mostly train set drama, which I personally love, and it's a fiendish little mystery, the type where all is not as it seems, and our main character and us, the audience, are never quite sure what's real and what's the result of a interesting first act head injury. Now, being a film from the late 30s, it smuggles in some pre-war propaganda, commentary, and it was this film, along with the 39 Steps, that showed Hitchcock at the peak of his powers within the British filmmaking establishment, and that paved the way for his move to Hollywood in 1940. Let's take a look.
I appeal to you, all of you, to stop the train. Please help me. Please make me stop the train. Do you hear? Why don't you do something before it's too late?
Please.
I know you think I'm crazy, but I'm not. For heaven's sake, stop this train.
No, come.
Leave me alone. Leave me.
So, 1938's The Lady Vanishes has an absolutely textbook three-act structure. The first act, we see how, due to an avalanche, a group of travellers have to stay overnight in a hotel before all boarding the next train out of a fictional Eastern European country. Now, as they're all squeezed into this jam-packed inn, we get a little glimpse at all the main characters of the piece, and initially you're kind of led to believe that it will be these two cricket-obsessed gentlemen named Charters and Caldecott, played brilliantly by Basil Radford and Norton Wayne. But as the first act becomes the second, we see we will actually be following Margaret Lockwood's Iris Henderson, a young lady on her way home to be married, who through an odd act of fate becomes the victim of a falling plant pot head injury.
You sure you're all right? Send us a copy of the Times. Write and tell us all about it.
Now, when Iris wakes from a little nap on board the train, the lady that she'd previously had tea with, Miss Froy, played by Dame May Whitty, has vanished.
The English lady, where is she?
There has been no English lady here.
What?
There has been no English lady here.
There has. She sat there in the corner. You saw her. You spoke to her. She sat next to you.
Iris can't convince anybody else on board that she was actually on the train in the first place, and that in fact Nazi spies are responsible for her disappearance. Now, they're my words, as the word Nazi, or in fact Germans, are never actually mentioned in this movie, but we can assume as much, mostly due to the time period, the fact that we have a number of British travellers desperate to depart an Eastern European country. The Lady Vanishes purposefully avoids leaning into any single geopolitical direction, sensible in light of it being released a year before Hitler marched on Poland.
I don't understand the language, and it may be important. Would you... That's fixed him. That's all right, he's only stunned. What the blazes do you do that for?
And now the third act is a straight-up espionage action thriller, really, that I won't mention much about through fear of too many spoilers. Anyway, can we, the audience, and Iris believe that the bang on the head is to blame for the assumed and strange disappearance of the old lady, and the fact that a different lady bizarrely seems to have replaced her at some point?
Miss Froy. That isn't Miss Froy.
Isn't it?
No.
I say, it's a silly thing to say, but are you Miss Froy?
No, I am Madame Kuma.
Now, it would seem so, as no one else seems to remember the original Miss Froy. Saying any more would spoil some of the film's most Hitchcockian surprises. So, as I mentioned earlier, we first follow British chums Charters and Caldecott, and the pair zigzag in and out of the plot as the comic relief, really. More interested in getting home for the test match and being on time for tea than the mystery that's gripping the rest of the train. I'm a fan of these characters and their stereotypical English buffoonery.
Tell me, what's happening to England? Blowing a gale? No, you don't follow me, sir. I'm inquiring about the test match in Manchester. Cricket, sir, cricket. What, you don't know? You can't be in England and not know the test score. It doesn't know.
The characters appeared again in 1940's Night Train to Munich and about a dozen other movies as the same characters but with different names. But our main protagonists here are, of course, Iris and the wisecracking young musician Gilbert, played by Michael Redgrave, who begins to believe her and they start to investigate across the train.
In the first place, a little old lady disappears. Everyone that saw her promptly insists that she was never there at all. Right?
Right.
We know that she was. Therefore, they did see her. Therefore, they are deliberately lying. Why?
I don't know. I'm only Watson.
Now, they make a great pair, either cross-examining other passengers or exploring the baggage cars for signs of the missing Miss Froy. They have a great breezy rapport that doesn't rely too heavily on romance, and props to Hitchcock for not having Lockwood play a distressed damsel, but a quite feisty character who's sure of her convictions and refuses to be convinced she's imagined the missing lady.
All these people on the train say they haven't seen Miss Froy, but they have. We know that because just now in the luggage van...
She's off again.
Hope she doesn't create another scene.
And then this fellow from the carriage, Dopper's his name, he came along and grabbed the glasses.
Yeah, we went for him and had a bit of a fight.
Oh, a fight?
We knocked him out.
Oh.
And we certainly have Hitchcock's wife Alma having her usual pass on the screenplay to credit for most of the female characters giving as good as they get, whether it's the mysterious, no-nonsense, high heels wearing nun, really, or the 70-year-old Miss Froy herself.
Everyone sings here. The people are just like happy children, with laughter on their lips and music in their hearts.
It's not reflected in their politics, you know.
I never think you should judge any country by its politics. After all, we English are quite honest by nature, aren't we? You'll excuse me if I run away?
Now, Hitchcock paces The Lady Vanishes just right. It's certainly a train movie, despite no one actually boarding a train until about a third of the way through the film. But once we're aboard, it is full steam ahead, and the film does highlight Hitchcock's technical abilities, as the entire movie was filmed entirely in a studio with train sequences all featuring rear projection and some model work that time hasn't really been that kind to. Now, as is the usual Hitchcock touch, it's also very light-hearted and surprisingly comedic, certainly for a tale of kidnap, murder and double crosses and impending war. If you're all familiar with the work of the master of suspense, you'll know there's going to be a MacGuffin, a plot device everyone is looking to get their hands on. And in this case, it's some secret information regarding a treaty between two European countries. How it's transported and passed around is as daft as it is ingenious. So The Lady Vanishes is maybe just nudged out of the top 10 Hitchcock movies, for me personally, which, considering his filmography, still means it's held in very high regard. The film has some wonderful dialogue and some of that great, understated British humour.
What was she wearing?
Tweeds, oatmeal flecked with brown, a three-quarter coat with patch pockets, a scarf, felt hat, brown shoes, a tassel shirt, and a small blue handkerchief in her breast pocket. I can't remember any more.
You couldn't have been paying attention.
And on the eve of war, away from the cinema screen, it shows ordinary folk who will patriotically rise to the occasion when the guns start firing. The Lady Vanishes was remade in the late 70s with Elliot Gould and Sybil Shepherd and a few more times over the years for TV, etc. But this 1938 version remains definitive, one of Hitchcock's finest early works and one of the best British films of its era. Go check it out.
My word, I'm glad I was over, aren't you? Heaven knows what the government will say about all this.
Nothing at all. They'll hush it up.
What?
Hey, take your hand off that thing. I've got to remember a tune.